What happens when your job is to educate, but you're being told to operate like a CEO? That's the powerful question at the center of the article we're breaking down today. And look, even though it's set in a school, the lessons here, they apply to pretty much anyone who's ever felt caught between their mission and the money.
And yeah, this really gets to the core of it, doesn't it? It's a conflict every leader faces, whether you're in a classroom, a startup, or a hospital. When the numbers on a spreadsheet are pointing one way, but your core purpose, your whole reason for being, is screaming to go the other, what do?
So let's treat this as a practical case study, a real-world guide to leadership when the walls are closing in. How do you uphold your standards when the constraints just keep getting tighter? Let's dive in and see.
All right, first up, let's really unpack this tension. What actually happens when the role of principal starts to feel a whole lot more like CEO?
The leader in our story, a school principal, is put in a classic bind. On one hand, their entire job is about academic integrity, making sure the teaching and learning is absolutely top-notch. But at the same time, they're handed a new set of rules, these tough operational constraints that make their main job much, much harder.
Okay, so what was the catalyst? Let's look at the specific directive that put this entire system under so much pressure. We're not talking about a small tweak here. This sent shockwaves right through the school.
So this is the starting point, a teacher-to-student ratio of 1 to 20. This is the baseline, the world they were used to. It's a number that actually allows for a personal connection and that tailored support that's so important.
And then the directive came down. The ratio had to increase to 1 to 30. Wow, that is a 50% jump. Now, on paper, sure, maybe that looks like an efficiency gain. But in reality, it's a massive, disruptive change to the entire learning ecosystem.
And this slide just perfectly captures that core conflict. The goal from on high was administrative efficiency, but the reality on the ground is that schools run on something called relational learning. It's the simple idea that students thrive with personal connection, with trust, with mentorship. And those are things you just can't easily scale on a spreadsheet.
Now, here's what's really interesting. The pressure wasn't some sudden crisis. The source calls it a cumulative impact, a slow burn. It started small, less tailored scaffolding. You know that personalized support that helps students climb to the next level? With less time for that, teachers had to use more generic templates. Then, feedback took longer. You can see where this is going. The strain leads to more teacher absences, which messes with instructional continuity. It was a quiet, creeping erosion of quality.
Faced with all this, the principal adopted a really powerful mindset, and this quote just nails it. This wasn't about abstract numbers anymore. It was about understanding that every single percentage point represented a student, a teacher, a relationship. That ratio wasn't a metric. It was a living, breathing environment.
This brings us to such a crucial leadership skill, the ability to see a problem brewing before it becomes a full-blown crisis. This is all about proactive observation, not just reactive firefighting.
You see, the principal was already noticing these warning signs even before the new ratio was announced. The article calls it reading the drift. Teacher workload was creeping up, feedback was taking longer, but look at that last point, that's so insightful. Informal chats in the hallway were becoming less about students and teaching and more about just logistics and scheduling. A subtle but powerful sign that the human element was being squeezed out. And this is the crucial point. The leader's actions weren't some desperate recovery plan. They were a preventative scaffold. The whole goal was to stabilize the system, to reinforce the structure before the full weight of the new policy could cause it to buckle.
So what did the principal actually do? This next section breaks down the specific, actionable strategies they used to navigate these constraints. This is the playbook.
The principal's playbook had 4 strategic moves. It started with data, not complaints, by modeling the true impact. From there, it was about using that data to reframe the debate, then protecting what was most important, and finally turning potential adversaries into allies by collaborating directly with finance and HR. And this whole strategy wasn't just a gut feeling. It's grounded in solid educational research. As Vivienne Robinson's work shows, leaders who focus on the purpose of learning, the why, get much better results than leaders who just focus on the organizational chart. This principle was leading with purpose, not just reacting to structure.
This reframing was maybe the most critical move. Instead of letting the conversation be about cutting immediate costs, the principal skillfully shifted the focus to a much more important idea, instructional continuity. That's all about making sure a student's learning journey is consistent and coherent, even when things are strained. The question became, how do we make sure learning isn't disrupted, instead of just, how do we save money right now?
Just brilliant.
The leader also looked beyond the obvious stuff. Drawing on a model from John Kotter, they focused on the invisible systems that make a school resilient. Think about it. How do teachers coordinate when someone is sick? How are meeting notes shared so everyone is on the same page? By improving these small adaptive processes, the how behind the work, they built real resilience from the inside out.
And all of this leads us to our final section, which really elevates this story from a specific problem to a universal philosophy of leadership. This is the bottom line.
Ultimately, it all came down to this. The principal was faced with a final choice. The affordable choice, make more cuts to hit those short-term financial targets. Or the sustainable choice, hold the line to protect the school's educational mission for the long haul.
And the leader chose sustainability. They remembered that every ratio is a living environment, and they protected the structures that keep learning human and purposeful, not just procedural. It meant finding other ways to meet the budget, but refusing to sacrifice the core mission for a number on a page.
And this gets to the heart of what this kind of leadership really is. It's not just about giving orders. It's about being a translator. You're like a bridge between the values of your mission, the realities of your systems, and the expectations of everyone involved.
That work, that translating, protecting, and aligning, that isn't just management, it's stewardship. And as the article so powerfully concludes, it is the quiet, often unseen architecture that makes any organization, and especially a school, truly sustainable for the future.